What's up, guys? Firstly, I just want to say Happy New Year's 2024. We still have a lot of grinding to do. We've been able to grow a lot on the YouTube front, and so we're going to continue with the build series for Season of the Wish. Now, as you guys know, hunters have a lot of great exotic options to choose from this season, especially when pairing stuff with these seasonal artifacts. So I wanted to go back and do a revamped Lucky Pants build for you. Let's not waste any time and dive right into it. So when you're ready, a fully loaded hand cannon that deals kinetic damage or a damage type that matches your subclass energy type, each hit from that hand cannon increases the damage of the next shot for a short time against the combatant. Hand cannons ready faster and are more accurate immediately upon swapping to them, provides a small benefit to airborne effectiveness stat of hand cannons while the buff is active. Now, I know that was a lot to go through, but the main thing with this is that your hand cannon can do stacking damage with each hit that it does. So it's really good for weapons like Malfeasance, for example, because it has 19 rounds in the magazine and you can stack up a lot of damage before the perk goes away. And since this is going to be a solar focused build, we're going to be talking about some other weapon options later on. Now, before talking about the artifact perks, I do want to talk about the subclass and why I'm using certain things. So first up, I'm going to be using the Golden Gun Marksman. Again, this is the 3-round pistol. It does a lot of precision damage that can stack, and what's pretty cool is that Golden Gun actually benefits from kinetic weapon surge on the boot, so I'll be talking about that when we get to the armor mods, but that's half the reason I'm using this. If you want to use something like Blade Barrage, you totally can, but I think the Golden Gun Marksman is just way more effective with this build. For my abilities, first up, I'm going with Gambler's Dodge, so when I dodge near a target, I can get my melee back. This is more of a just-in-case ability here. For movement, you can use what you like, but I like Triple Jump. For the melee, I would go with Knife Trick. Reason being is because you can throw out the Phantom Knives. It can do precision damage, but you can also scorch targets with the knife, which is really good. You can take out multiple targets as well. And then for the grenade, I'm going to go with the Healing Grenade. For our aspects, go ahead and toss on Knock 'em Down so we get the bonus to all of our supers across the board. And while we're Radiant, Final Blows with your equipped Throwing Knife fully refund your melee energy. So as long as we continue to get Throwing Knife kills while we're Radiant, you can essentially have your Knife Trick forever. For our second aspect, we're going with On Your Mark because, number one, it gives us 3 fragment slots, but Precision Final Blows grant you and nearby allies increased weapon handling and reload speed for a short duration. That can stack up to 3 times, and then activating your class ability immediately grants maximum stacks of On Your Mark. For our fragments here, first up, I'm going with Ember of Torches, so your power melee attacks against combatants make you and nearby allies Radiant. It is a -10 to Discipline. All you need to do is hit the target with the knife, and you become Radiant. And again, like I said with Knock 'em Down, as long as you kill the target, the knife gets refunded. Next up, I'm going with Ember of Empyrean. So solar weapon and ability Final Blows extend the duration of Restoration and Radiant. So essentially, if I drop my Healing Grenade, proceed to get kills with the knife or weapons, I can continue having Radiant and Restoration up indefinitely. So keep that in mind. I personally like Ember of Singeing here, so your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. And again, with our knife, it's going to scorch targets anyway. There's going to be a way to do it with our weapons too, but basically, the whole thing here is that if for some reason we don't have the knife trick, or if it doesn't kill a target, we can use our dodge to get the knife back. If it doesn't kill again, we can still get our dodge back pretty quickly. Next, I'd recommend Ember of Ashes, so you apply more scorch stacks to targets, which means you can cause more ignitions. And then lastly, it's kind of up to you. I personally like Ember of Wonder this season, so rapidly defeating multiple targets with solar ignitions generates an orb of power. It's a +10 to resilience. There's going to be a very easy way to potentially cause ignitions here, but you could also switch it out for something like Ember of Solace, so your Radiant Restoration effects that are applied to you last longer. You could also do something like Ember of Char. Your solar ignition spread scorch to affected targets. It's kind of up to you how you want to play. Now, under the artifact, we have some good solar bonuses. First up being Kindling Trigger. So Radiant causes solar weapons to apply scorch to unscorched combatants. We have Torch. So while you're Radiant, you deal increased weapon damage to combatants affected by Strand and Stasis debuffs. So if you have teammates that are applying those debuffs, as long as you're Radiant, it's basically free weapon damage. Next up is Heart of the Flame. So casting your solar super grants nearby allies Radiant and increases the damage of your super for each nearby ally. This is really good for dungeons. It's really good for raids especially. So it's basically free damage for your super. Next up is Revitalizing Blast. So causing damage with a solar ability weakens champions and bosses for a short duration. This is basically a free weaken proc with Throwing Knives on this build, for example. And then lastly, Raise of Precision. So while you're Radiant, solar precision Final Blows cause combatants to ignite. Basically, as long as you use the knife trick and you get a precision Final Blow with the knife trick, it causes a free ignition. On top of those ones, I like using Blast Radius, so rapid Final Blows with rocket launchers and grenade launchers grant an armor charge, and I will be using a grenade launcher, a specific solar one, for a specific reason, which I'll go over under the weapons, but I will be using a rocket launcher, mainly because I can also take advantage of Argent Ordnance. So firing a rocket launcher consumes 1 stack of armor charge, granting increased damage and reload speed until you stow your rocket launcher. This is really good for pretty much free damage. And then I talk about it every video this season. Definitely put on From Whence You Came for the increased ability damage to take in the scoring combatants, and then Wish into Being So when your super is nearly fully charged, ability final blows spawn extra orbs of power. Next, let's go over the armor mods, starting with the helmet. I am rocking Kinetic and Harmonic Siphon, so my rapid Kinetic and Solar Weapon Final Blows will spawn orbs of power. I will be using a Kinetic in my primary, and then also a Solar Special and Heavy Weapon, so might as well get free orbs of power out of that. I also like Hands-On, so gain bonus super energy on melee kills. If you did want to switch out Harmonic Siphon and Hands-On, you know, for Heavy Ammo Finder, Heavy Ammo Scout, Special Ammo Finder, all that stuff, you could totally do so depending on the encounter. On my gauntlets, I'm rocking double impact induction, so when I cause damage to my melee attack, it reduces my grenade cooldown. And then I personally like heavy-handed, so your powered melee final blows create orbs of power. And again, note, heavy-handed, firepower, and the Reaper mod on the class, and I'm all have a 10-second cooldown now between, you know, how often you can spawn orbs of power, but we're going to be using the melee fairly often anyway. It's basically a free way to gain more orbs of power. On the chest piece, you can rock whatever combination of reserve and resistance mods that you'd like. Again, with Harmonic Reserves, that translates to Solar Reserves, which these cost 3, Harmonic costs 2. I'm rocking double this since I'm using a, you know, special energy weapon and heavy weapon, and then I just have on arc resistance, but I'll change that out to whatever I like. On the boots here, I'm rocking recuperation, so it replenishes health each time I pick up an orb of power, and then I'm also rocking double kinetic weapon surge. If you did want to change one of these out for solar weapon surge, so then you have one kinetic, one solar, that's totally fine, but essentially you gain extra weapon damage while you have an armor charge. Your armor charge now decays over time. Again, you collect armor charges by picking up orbs of power. With this build, you can have 3 armor charges, and with any of these blue mods, that makes it last 10 seconds. So at 3 armor charges, we can have 30 seconds of this bonus weapon damage. And then lastly on the class item, number 1, I'm rocking Bomber, so reducing my grenade cooldown when I use my class ability. I personally like Powerful Attraction, so automatically collects nearby orbs of power when you activate your class ability, which can proc recuperation and also the armor charges for the extra bonus weapon damage with the surge mods. And then I like Time Dilation, so my decaying armor charge has a longer duration, so that 10 seconds that I mentioned gets bumped up to 15 seconds, so at 3 armor charges I can have 45 seconds of that bonus weapon damage. For stats to focus on, you really only need to make sure you have tier 10 100 resilience. Again, that's a 30% damage reduction in activities. You definitely want to take advantage of it. You know, I always spec into discipline. You know, discipline is tied to a grenade, and I want that healing grenade back, you know, as fast as possible, just in case I need to use it before I hop into an engagement, so I could continue having restoration. I would potentially focus on mobility, because mobility is actually tied to how fast you get the dodge back, but with Ember of Singeing under the subclass, you really don't need it. So I would kind of focus on resilience, discipline, and then potentially intellect. Again, intellect is tied to how fast you can get your super back. Now, going over your weapon options, the way I have this set up is something that I really like, so I do want to cover this first. Again, Malfeasance is a staple for this build. This thing's fantastic. So you shoot tainted slugs that burrow into combatants, stacking enough slugs causes them to explode and can stun unstoppable champions. We have Corkscrew Rifling with Extended Mag, Heavy Grip, and then Taken Predator, so bonus damage against taken enemies and Gambit invaders. The main thing here is the taken enemies, especially, you know, using this in something like the Warlord's Ruin Dungeon. It's fantastic, and if you have its catalyst finished out, you gain Vorpal Weapon, so it's really good for boss DPS. For my energy weapon, I'm using a Solar Waveframe Grenade Launcher, the Explosive Personality. You can get enough red borders from this through the Vox Obscura mission now, because it is one of the first craftable weapons that you could get, and honestly, I didn't really like it, but this thing with this build is fantastic. Number 1, we have auto-loading holster enhanced, so we can auto-reload this thing as much as we want. And then Disruption Break. This is important. So breaking a combatant's shield with this weapon makes them more vulnerable to kinetic damage for an improved duration. So I can use this grenade launcher on a target that has an overshield, you know, any mini bosses as well. Pop that shield, and then I can whip out Malfeasance, and that can do even more damage to that target, especially if you get into tougher activities where yellow bars have a lot of health. They can be pretty chunky. This is basically free, plus you could take advantage of it with something like Blast Radius on the artifact, like I mentioned. So if I get rapid final blows with it, it's a free armor charge with this grenade launcher as well. Plus, it can help me keep up Restoration and Radiant because it's a solar weapon, and take advantage of Solar Weapon Surge. Now for my heavy weapon, it honestly doesn't really matter. You know, I personally like Apex Predator, Recon, and Bait and Switch Enhanced. This thing's good for DPS. Same thing with Cataclysmic. Again, this is a linear fusion. It's meant more for precision damage, 4 times the charm, Bait and Switch. This thing is fantastic as well. You can honestly rock whatever your favorite Solar Legend heavy weapon is. Now, if you wanted to switch out Malfeasance and Explosive Personality, that's totally fine. There are a lot of good hand cannons. You know, people like Warren's Law, 4 times the charm, Vorpal, if you can get that roll, especially from Grandmaster Nightfalls. But one that I would recommend is that, you know, number 1, if you're going to switch out your kinetic slot, you could put on a special weapon, you know, something like Scatter Sigil this season that you can craft. This fusion rifle is fantastic. You can put on Slice with Control Burst. You can also switch this out for Overflow to overflow the magazine. I personally like Slice so I can apply Sever, so I can get Torch proc. But in any event, event, in the energy slot, you can put on something like Sunshot. Again, with the hand cannon buff, Sunshot feels fantastic. It's basically free damage whenever you pull out the hand cannon with Lucky Pants, and it's really good for ad clear, free explosions. You can keep up Restoration and Radiant with this hand cannon very easily. Now, if you got through all that and you're still a little confused about how this build works, I'm going to break it down for you. But honestly, you have two modes. You have DPS with hand cannon, and then you have survivability with all the solar stuff. First up, pairing Malfeasance with Lucky Pants is just a fantastic option. You know, you could take out mini bosses easily, champions easily, do really good boss DPS for a primary weapon. And if you don't have any heavy, you can use the hand cannon as a substitute. I know some people rock Celestial Nighthawk, and then when they run out of super, they'll hot swap to the Lucky Pants build to use Malfeasance, so then they can just spam Malfeasance since you never run out of primary ammo. But if you didn't want to do that, again, if for some reason, you know, you have a rocket launcher with reconstruction like I mentioned, you could fire off the rocket, switch Malfeasance, boom, 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 and then it's like, oh, my rocket's reloaded, use the rocket again. So you have the option with this hand cannon to deal really good damage to mini bosses to take them out even faster, or boss DPS. Secondly, under the solar portion, all you need to do is drop the healing grenade at your feet before you hop into an engagement, get a kill with one of your solar weapons or the knife trick, and now you have Radiant and Restoration, and as long as you continue getting kills, you can have maximum timer for both of those things. And again, with Ember of Singeing, if for some reason you don't have your Gambler's Dodge, which it's honestly pretty easy to have because with knife trick, like with Knock 'em Down, as long as you're Radiant and continue to get kills with knife trick, you can have the melee indefinitely. Plus, on the on the artifact as well, as long as you get a precision kill with the knife, it causes a free ignition. So with Ember of Wonder, you can also cause an extra orb of power to spawn on top of heavy-handed with the gauntlet. So now you have 2 orbs of power that can potentially spawn just from using your knife. But if for some reason you use the knife, it doesn't kill the target, use Gambler's Dodge to get it back, and then you hit the target again and it doesn't die. With Ember of Singeing, you can get your Gambler's Dodge back pretty quickly, so you're almost always going to have your dodge and your melee ability. Everything under the artifact is a bonus. You know, Kindling Trigger, scorching unscorched targets while you're Radiant. Torch, deal increased weapon damage to targets affected by Strand and Stasis debuffs while you're Radiant. Heart of the Flame, use your super near your allies so it can do more damage. Paralyzing Blast basically allows you to weaken champions and bosses. It's a free weaken proc right there. With Blast Radius, Rapid, Final Blows with the Rocket Launcher, or the Grenade Launcher, more specifically, gives you a free armor charge. Argent Ordnance consumes an armor charge, but your rocket launcher does more damage. You know, from whence you came and wishing it being, it's basically free ability damage to take into Scorn and free orbs of power when you're near your super. Everything with the armor mods is a bonus. You know, free orbs of power from getting rapid weapon kills, getting your grenade back faster just from using your melee, having that bonus weapon from kinetic weapon surge for Malfeasance and your golden gun, and then all the bonuses of having that last really long with time dilation, collecting those orbs of power around you when using Gambler's Dodge. It's basically free. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is my Season of the Wish revamped Lucky Pants build. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm actually going to put the dim link for this build in the description, so if you want to copy everything that I'm using down to the subclass, the armor mods, even the drip if you'd like. People are always asking me about, you know, shaders and ornaments and stuff like that, so all of that will be included in the dim link. And then test out for yourself. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff you can change out with this build, so if there's something that you like using under the subclass, the armor mods, even weapons, definitely let me know in the comments. I'm testing stuff out in this game all the time. In any event, if what you saw was valuable or entertaining to you, be sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and then turn on the bell next to notifications so you don't miss out on another build video here on the channel. If you didn't know, we live stream on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok simultaneously across the board, so if you want to tune into a live stream, again, we will be live 3 days a week in the evening starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. We are mainly going to be playing Destiny 2. Again, we are doing dungeon carries, Warlord's Ruin dungeon carries, so if you need help with it, we can definitely get you in the queue. But we're also going to be playing other games, and if you want to be proactive, join my Discord, because that's where we're going to be chatting, and we also have people looking to play Destiny 2 together, and we're also talking about other games, PC tech, anime, and more. And lastly, if you want to support the channel even more, you can look into becoming a member. If you don't know what a membership is essentially like a Twitch subscription, but it is cheaper, and the main benefit with it is you get access to all of my videos early as a member, no matter what tier you are. But there are some other benefits in there that I would recommend checking out. And if you would like more information, all you have to do is press the join button next subscribe, and I'll give you a rundown with all the details you need. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.